Hi everyone,
Hello.
nice to see you again. And we're continuing today with our look at creation. So this is video 3 out of 4 on creation and what we understand from that. So looking at Genesis chapter 1 and 2. Over the last couple of days we've looked at basically at God, looked at creation and at mankind and our place in this creation.
So what's next, Colin?
So we're going to look at some of the principles that we can understand from these chapters and see if we can just kind of expand some of our theological understandings to some of the other areas that this passage touches on. So we're going to start off with the subject of work. That's one of the key things that comes through here. In particular, the dignity of work. I know that some people tend to think of work being a bit of a pain, even to the point of it being something that wasn't intended in creation.
That is definitely the case.
Yeah.
When I was first a Christian, all I wanted was to work for the church full time.
Yeah.
And having a normal job and working as a teacher or something like that seemed like second best.
Second best, definitely. Yeah.
That's how I don't know if I was taught it or if I just
It's the culture.
perceived it.
Yeah, the culture.
Like if you were working full time for the Lord, FTFTL, then you were somehow sort of more holy and more esteemed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's good you're talking about this.
Yeah, thank you. So, where do we get this from? Well, you find who's the first person you find at work in the Bible?
Adam?
No, before that.
Eve?
No.
Oh. Okay, before that, God.
God is at work.
That was a trick question.
It shouldn't be. It's because God started the whole project. I mean, not only did he do the whole creation thing, but then it says that God planted a garden. You know, so he was the one that created the Garden of Eden. And I'm not sure, it's a different way of reading it. It's not, how he spoke and stuff happened and he ordered it and all that. But actually it talks about him planting. He planted the garden.
He bent down.
Yeah, he was there. Somehow planting, growing.
Bringing order.
Yeah, he was the one forming it. And it was quite an impressive job by all accounts. So, he was there working, and then when he created Adam, then he said, okay, here's the garden I've made for you. Now it's your turn to carry on what I've already started. There's already trees, there's already plants here, there's already, beautiful trees with good fruit and all that kind of stuff. And now, there you go, Adam. It's your turn.
It's quite a pressure.
Yeah. Well, maybe, but
it is, because when we rent a house out and it's all lovely, and you think, oh no, hope I don't kill those plants.
Yeah, true. But if you're in the Garden of Eden, you get the impression that things grow pretty well there.
Okay.
So I don't think it was a burdensome job for Adam. I don't think he was like, oh, got to get up this morning and get out to work, and got to get my plants watered, and it wasn't a difficult thing for him. I think it was a joy. I think there was some real joy in it. That's how you imagine when God says it's all good.
Yeah.
It's very good. Then he's enjoying his creation, and there's a dignity about it that God gives it. There's an intrinsic value in work that Adam then carries on. I think it's part of the human condition to want to work, to want to, let's say this, to produce things. We get a satisfaction in that. It's part of how we're wired to produce things, to take delight in things, to do things well, and to enjoy the fruit of what we do. So I think
my dad was like that. He would get up really early and go out and tend the garden. He was excited to do it. I bet lots of people watching are like that, but we're more city people, aren't we?
We are, yeah. But it doesn't mean that we can't enjoy doing our work.
No, absolutely. But I'm just talking about gardening.
Yeah, sure. But I think, whatever we end up doing, which we call work, there is a dignity to it and a value to it that is more than just having to do it because it's for the sake of getting some work, getting some money or whatever. It's actually a joy to do it, and it's part of worship. It's part of our role in the world.
Yeah.
So I think it's an important thing, and in an ideal world, work is a delight and it's worship to God. And it's also the way that God has ordained for our provision. Again, it's one of those things in church where you can get the impression, you listen to some of these preachers saying, all you have to do is trust God and the money will come. All you have to do is pray this prayer, or in some of the more dodgy churches, give into my offering and, the provision will come. And it's almost like, this supernatural provision that will come from who knows where, and you just have to pray and believe and it's going to happen. Whereas that's not actually the way that God ordained things to happen. He didn't ordain that Adam sat around and said, just pray and ask me and the fruit will form and drop off the trees into your lap. No, he had to go and work for it. He had to go and tend it and, make the trees, tended well, feeding them, watering them, producing the fruit, picking it, all that kind of stuff. So, I think we can understand some of God's heart for provision through the creation story as well. That God gives resources to us, gives us things that we can use, gives us skills, gives us abilities, gives us energy and strength. But actually, he puts it in our hands to say, okay, now go and provide.
Yeah.
There's obviously independence on God. When you plant that seed or you buy that stuff ready to go and sell again, there's this sense of dependence on God. We don't make it all happen. God's the one that makes it happen ultimately, but we're doing our part.
When you say independence on God, you mean with dependence? With dependence. Thank you. Yeah, with dependence on God.
He
brings the growth.
Yeah. So it's partnership.
Yeah.
All the way. So wherever we are, whatever we're doing, we're living by faith. We're trusting God. And sometimes we forget that if you're in a business where you're being paid every month or every week, or it's, when we think, we're generating our own money. Actually, everything is dependent on God. So, but we should enjoy work. Work is good. I think that's how Paul described it. I always find it fascinating when he talks to the Ephesian elders, Acts chapter 20. So he's there. It's the last time he's going to speak to the elders. These are the overseers of the church community in Ephesus, and he wants them. His last words to them are says, "You yourselves know that these hands of mine have supplied my own needs and the needs of my companions." So this is Paul, the great apostle. Who
looking after himself.
Yeah, he had all these churches that he could have looked to for support, all these places. He says, that I've been working really hard to provide for myself and my companions.
Yeah.
That was the model that Paul wanted to show to these church leaders. Don't just sit there and wait for your congregations to start paying you. Get out there and work, he says. And even work hard enough so you can supply others' needs. He says, "In everything I did, I showed you that by this kind of hard work we must help the weak, remembering the words of the Lord Jesus himself. when he said it's more blessed to give than to receive.
Mm.
So he's got a view of work which is full of dignity. In fact, you're given resources, you're given strength. You can go and work hard so that you can provide for yourself, provide for those around you. You remember he writes to the Thessalonians at one point and says, if you don't work, then neither shall you eat.
Mm.
In other words, get off your lazy backside, some of you, and get out to work.
I always thought that was a bit harsh.
Mm. Yeah, well, unless you recognise the dignity and the purpose of work. It's more than just going and providing for yourself. There's a whole list of reasons why we need to work, need to be active and productive. Not necessarily just for money. Even if you're unemployed, you can still be active and productive.
I see what you mean.
And it's good for the human soul.
Mm.
It's good for us. That's how we're made. So I think Paul's quite clear about that. And I just think this is how we bring order to the chaos, just like God did.
Yeah.
And how we make life flourish around us. Humanity, we're the only species, if you like, that actually tries to make our lives improve. So, I mean, you've been to Dubai.
Mm.
Have you ever seen those footage of Dubai, coming from nothing, a desert?
Yeah, it's incredible.
And over the years it starts growing and growing, and in 50 years it goes from a desert to like this world-class city.
Mm.
No other species will do that. You think about, the most intelligent animals. You said the other day about the birds, with their nests.
Yeah.
They'll have the same environment for thousands and thousands of years. Even the most intelligent of animals, they don't go from one generation to another, advancing and bringing order to areas and making life flourish in the way that humanity does.
Mm.
We're unique like that.
I'm being a bit mean to birds now.
But birds
What about bees when they make the incredible...
Yeah, they're amazing, but they've done the same thing for years and years. They've kind of reached their pinnacle, and mankind is still growing and expanding, and we're yet discovering more potential in us for bringing the world into order and making life flourish.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's all sorts of things. In fact, I think we're advancing faster and faster. And animals have just stayed the same. So, yeah. That's all about the dignity and the joy of work and the fact that God's given it to us in order to make life flourish around us. Okay. Convinced?
Yeah.
Okay. So number 2.
The dogs are looking a little bit offended, but
yeah, because they've been living the same for
You're
years
rubbish.
and years. No, they just haven't
no,
been
we
given.
love them.
They haven't been given the same role as us. They've just been told to be cute and come and be our friends. So, All right. So number 2. What do we see? And I'm looking particularly at the relationship now between Adam and Eve. I want to say this is about equality and complementarity. I'll try and explain that a little bit more. When God first created the heavens and the earth, he did 3 days of separating. Do you remember?
Yeah.
So they were like...
Light and dark, land and sea.
Yep, and
animals.
Water and sky.
Water and sky.
So there were 3 kind of complementary pairs that he divided up. And he's got 1 complementary pair left, male and female. So he makes this couple, and they've got a role to play, each of them with separate roles. So, obviously Adam was the first, and God says he's not okay on his own.
Amen.
he's in trouble. He can't do what he was made to do.
Mm.
Remember what you remember what mankind was made to do?
Fulfill the earth.
Yeah. Fill the earth, subdue it.
Bring order.
Bring order to it, yeah. Remember those two words, we talked about that phrase, tohu wabohu. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember what it means?
Fill and subdue, something like that?
No. Formless and empty.
Oh, yeah.
That was what creation was like. Before anything was created, it was tohu wabohu. It was formless and empty. And God's work in creation was to bring form and then to fill. Likewise, Adam was given that same role. To be like God and to form things and to fill things. Now, Adam was actually quite good at the forming. He was able to go into the garden and make things work and plant the trees and produce the fruit, all those kind of things. He could form it, but he couldn't fill. And that's why God says it's not good for Adam to be on his own.
Do you think he made a big mess as well?
Yeah, do you think so? Maybe. But he wasn't able to do what God had called him to do.
Yeah.
And so he looks and it says, tries to find a helper. Are there any animals that will be suitable as a helper? Now, of course, there are animals that help. There are horses that you can ride on. There's oxes that you can plough the fields with. You know, lots of helpers amongst the animals, but no one that could be the help that Adam really needed. And so God created Eve. Out of Adam, the one becoming two. The division of male and female, complementary pair. That whereas Adam was there primarily as the former, the one with the strength to work the land, and there was Eve, the one that was able to produce life, the nurturer. And together they could form and they could fill. They could do what God had commanded.
And you're going to say they're equal?
I am. Absolutely.
Because when I was first a Christian, it seemed like it was better to work for the church than to work. It did also seem like it was better to be a man, really.
Right. Yeah. And
they were equal, but men were a bit more equal.
Oh. You know, I need you. We need you. And yeah, God says, right from the creation, that Adam and Eve were completely equal in their value, in their worth before God. They were different, absolutely they were different. And I think that's one of the things that the argument in our society now of, well, if we've got different roles, that must mean that we're not equal. And so we must be equal, we must have everything the same. And we've kind of blurred it now, where we don't recognise the difference in the sexes, in male and female, and everything's got to be the same. And it gets quite emotive, quite heated arguments. And it's a shame, because to me, the creation story is very clear. We're different. And God actually designed woman to be the helpful man that we needed. And you're made with different attributes, you know. And I think it's true in general. Women are able to produce life. They nurture and they build community and build family in a way that men don't. And I think that's part of our God-given role. I don't think it's something that we've been conditioned by. It's something that God has put within us. So, you know, it's good to embrace that and to say we are completely equal before God, but we've got different roles to play. You know, that's the beauty of the Trinity. It's the beauty of God, that God has different persons within one God. There are three different persons: Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and the Spirit glorifies the Son, and the Son glorifies the Father, and the Father gives grace to the others. There's this mutual submission and working together.
Plurality.
One. Yeah, very good. Yeah, all of us are equal.
So, I mean, if it was man reflected in God's image on his own, it wouldn't be plural.
Yeah.
For a start.
Yeah.
And also, men can only do one thing at a time.
Yeah. That's true.
In general.
Yeah.
So you need women to reflect how God's doing millions of things all at once.
Yeah. I think, honestly, when it says male and female, he created them. In the image of God, he created them. There's this sense in which you've got to say, without females, we lack something of the image of God.
And we need you too.
Oh, really?
I hope you know I'm just joking. I'm making huge generalisations.
Oh. Yes, well, these are generalisations, and you'll always be able to say, oh no, but so-and-so, that man's more nurturing and stuff like that. But I think we have got a general kind of understanding of this. There are different roles. You know, I mean, the New Testament is very clear actually about it, that the husband in a family, the husband is the one that carries the responsibility to lead that family. And ultimately he stands before God about how that family works itself out. It's quite a big responsibility. And Paul says, it's like Jesus and the church. The husband is the head in a way that, like Jesus leads the church, so the husband should love his wife and serve her and lay his life down for her. So he kind of defines how that relationship should work. Even though he's saying that a husband is the head, actually he's saying, so you've got the responsibility to lay your life down.
Is that why you made me some toast? Because you knew you were going to be saying all this?
Yeah, toast and tea. So, yeah, I'll do my best. Okay, so there we go. So equality and complementarity.
I mean, it's so obvious that men can't build a baby and nurture a baby and keep a baby alive, isn't it?
It is.
So it's actually staggering how confused the whole thing has got.
Yeah.
In certain parts of the world, especially.
Yeah, where we're from. Yeah, very confusing, and people they grow up without a sense of identity of who I am as a woman or who I am as a man, and that's really tough to be brought up like that and lack that sense of identity. We as a church, as Christians, we've got something to say about that, and to help people to understand what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. So yeah.
I love being a woman.
I love you being a woman.
Do you like being a man?
Very much. Okay. Excuse us now while we go and talk about all this. So the question for
I feel
today.
sorry for men.
Do you?
Yeah, it's so cool being a woman. It's brilliant.
I'm glad you feel like that. And it's okay being a man too. The question today...
And it's great to be a dog.
...is what pastoral wisdom do you see from these passages?
Say that bit again, because I'm going to cut out the dog bit.
Okay. So the discussion question today is...
Homework time.
What pastoral wisdom do you see in these principles in creation?
What kind of thing do you mean?
Well... I'm giving it away now.
What pastoral wisdom?
Yeah. So, in terms of, we've touched on the dignity of work. How?
I see.
How, what does that look like? How do you pastor people out of that?
I've given you the answer.
How do you pastor people in relationships?
Yeah. Okay.
Some things like that.
3 clues.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.